I think he's a good person.
Oh, all right.
Hunter Biden purchased a firearm, and federal prosecutors later argued that he had falsely answered a question on the federal purchase form concerning his drug use. The case became politically explosive, because it wasn't simply about Hunter Biden. It was about whether the son of the vice president, and later the president, would receive different treatment from an ordinary American. In June 2024, a federal jury in Delaware found Hunter Biden guilty on 3 felony counts connected to the firearm purchase.
Where's the gun? And she said, I threw it away. And I said, you can't do that.
Critics argued that Burisma wasn't paying for Hunter's expertise alone. They believed the Biden name itself had value. And one of Hunter's own former business partners, Devon Archer, would later give that argument enormous political fuel.
Probably the most famous board member of a Ukrainian energy company of all time.
The first person to smoke crack in the White House.
They found a bunch of blow in the White House.
Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden's expensive artwork.
Literally, Hunter Biden almost made me vote for Joe. I was that close. I was like, I fucking love Hunter.
Some names get you a meeting. Some names get you a second chance. And then there are names that can change the temperature of an entire room. Hunter Biden was born into one of those names. His father was Joe Biden, United States Senator, Vice President, and eventually, President of the United States. But Hunter's story was never simply the story of a politician's son, because over the years, his life became a strange collision of power, money, foreign business, addiction, family tragedy, private messages, public scandals, criminal charges, and questions that refused to disappear. Some accusations against Hunter Biden were never proven. Others were. Some stories were exaggerated. Others became evidence in federal court. And some of the people making the allegations were themselves discredited. That's what makes this story so complicated. Because if you strip away the political shouting, what remains is something much stranger. A man who repeatedly found himself standing at the intersection of enormous privilege and enormous personal chaos. And eventually, the entire country was watching. This is the story of Hunter Biden. Not the campaign version, not the partisan meme, but the documented timeline. The people who worked with him, the people who criticized him, the prosecutors who investigated him, and the decisions that eventually brought his story directly into the White House. Chapter 1. Before the headlines. Long before Burisma, before the laptop, before the federal courtroom, there was tragedy. Hunter Biden's childhood was marked by a devastating accident. In 1972, when Hunter was a toddler, a car crash killed his mother, Nelia, and his infant sister, Naomi. Hunter and his older brother, Beau, survived. Decades later, Hunter would face another devastating loss. In 2015, Beau Biden died from brain cancer.
He knew his time was up. Last thing he said before he passed away, I mean, literally we were in the hospital about Hunt and I with him, lying in bed with him. He looked at me and said, I'm not scared, Dad, it's okay. I'm not scared, it's okay. It was gone within.
Hunter later described his brother's death as a turning point in his own struggle with addiction. And this matters, because Hunter's later behavior didn't happen inside a vacuum. His addiction struggles were real. They were extensively documented, and Hunter himself spoke publicly about them.
Yeah.
It was like, you
Yeah.
were doing crack at the places that I eat.
Yeah. Well, not intentionally. I wasn't stalking you.
No.
But here's where the story starts getting complicated. Because Hunter wasn't simply a man battling addiction. He was also the son of the Vice President of the United States. And eventually, that famous last name became part of the business story. Chapter 2. Burisma. Ukraine. Hunter Biden joins the board of Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company. And immediately, the optics were explosive.
What did Hunter Biden do for the money that Burisma Holdings paid him?
His father, Joe Biden, was Vice President of the United States, and Joe Biden was deeply involved in US policy toward Ukraine. That doesn't automatically prove Hunter committed corruption. It doesn't prove Joe Biden changed American policy for his son. But it created an obvious conflict of interest problem, or at minimum, the appearance of one. And that's where the detective story begins. Because the question wasn't simply, what did Hunter Biden do? It was, why was Hunter Biden being paid by a foreign company while his father was one of the most powerful American officials dealing with that country? Hunter's defenders argued that he was an adult professional with his own career. Critics argued that Burisma wasn't paying for Hunter's expertise alone. They believed the Biden name itself had value. And one of Hunter's own former business partners, Devon Archer, would later give that argument enormous political fuel. Chapter 3. The Brand. Devon Archer wasn't an anonymous internet commentator. He was Hunter Biden's former business partner. In 2023, Archer testified to the House Oversight Committee about their business activities. His testimony became one of the most controversial pieces of the entire Biden family investigation. Archer described Joe Biden as the brand. His argument was essentially that Hunter's association with his father created enormous value in international business. Chapter 4. China. Ukraine wasn't the only country appearing in Hunter Biden's business story. China entered the picture too. Hunter was connected to business ventures involving Chinese partners. And once again, the question became uncomfortable. How much of Hunter Biden's success came from Hunter Biden, and how much came from being Hunter Biden? That distinction became central to the entire controversy. Because Hunter had legitimate professional credentials. He was a lawyer. He had worked in finance. He had experience in business. But his last name was impossible to separate from any room he entered. And critics argued that foreign businessmen weren't simply looking at Hunter. They were looking at the possibility of proximity to Joe Biden. Chapter 5. The Personal Collapse. Hunter Biden was struggling. His addiction had become a defining part of his adult life, and his behavior became increasingly chaotic. His relationships became complicated. His family life became strained. His finances became increasingly unstable, and his private struggles became public entertainment for millions of people. But here's the uncomfortable part. The political world often treated Hunter's addiction as ammunition. Hunter himself described it differently, as an illness, a destructive force, and something he had spent years trying to escape. Chapter 7. The Gun Case. October 2018. Hunter Biden purchased a firearm, and federal prosecutors later argued that he had falsely answered a question on the federal purchase form concerning his drug use. The case became politically explosive, because it wasn't simply about Hunter Biden. It was about whether the son of the vice president, and later the president, would receive different treatment from an ordinary American. In June 2024, a federal jury in Delaware found Hunter Biden guilty on 3 felony counts connected to the firearm purchase. Special counsel David Weiss described the case as being about illegal choices made during addiction, and emphasized that no one was above the law. Hunter Biden had now become the first child of a sitting US president to be convicted of a crime. That was no longer an allegation. That was a verdict. The Biden family wasn't defending itself against a headline. It was dealing with a federal conviction.